So I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of intro to your background and to like kind of how you decided to pursue the PhD.
Sure. So I am currently a master's student. And even when I was getting my bachelor's degree and recently graduated and teaching, I knew that I wanted to pursue higher education because I didn't want to stay teaching in secondary schools my whole life. So after applying for my master's program, I decided pretty quickly that I was invested in just plowing through to get my PhD because my goal is to just have all of my doors open to me once I graduate. I don't want any opportunities to not be within my reach because I was too scared to try for the next step. And I really like the idea of getting the terminal degree so that I can apply to every university, every job I want, and know that nothing's going to hold me back. So I am currently getting my master's in English with a concentration in writing and rhetoric. And that's what I'll be pursuing for my PhD as well. It was, but by the time I came into my master's program, I already knew that I was going to be applying for PhD programs, and I had absolutely no idea where to start.
Okay. Yeah. So that awesome. Thank you for that intro. And so maybe you could describe where you were before you did the Fearless Grad program and where you are now.
Sure. So before the program, the only thing I had done was begin to look at schools that I knew I could potentially apply to because I am married and my husband works in Cincinnati. And my goal for going into my master's and hopefully into my PhD is that I will keep us in the area so that he doesn't have to leave his job. He's been incredibly supportive of me doing this kind of crazy thing and leaving my job. And one of us needs to make sure that we have a salary benefits. So before the program, I had created a list of schools that I potentially wanted to apply to. And I had opened up an application or two, and I was just like completely lost by how much went into the application. I'm a first-gen college student from a small town in Indiana. My father has a high school diploma. My mother has an associate's degree. So I don't have anyone who can help me. And I knew that I could, waste the money applying and probably have pretty subpar applications, or I could find some kind of service to help me. Spend a lot of time talking with a lot of professors at my university, but because I don't go to like an R1 school, I find that it can be really hard to get that kind of support because most of the teachers are carrying close to a full teaching load every semester. All of the professors that I work with currently do, and they have other jobs on top of that. Some of them are like deans in various departments, or they work with like the TA program and things like that. So there's lots of like training and tutoring going on too. And no one really seemed like they could answer little individual questions, but no one knew how to like connect me with someone who had done it before, who could sit down with me and train me on how to make sure that if I was going to do it, it was going to be right. And it was pure happenstance that I had been Googling a lot of things, and the Facebook algorithm showed me your ad one day. And so I reached out to you immediately. And I remember one of the first questions you asked me was, how committed are you to doing this? And I said, I am 110% committed. I want to know that when I submit the application and go to sleep that night, that I can sleep well knowing that there was absolutely nothing I could have done better because it will be as close to perfect as possible. And you said, okay, let's get started.
Perfect. Okay, cool. And I love that. Very good description. And so where are you now that you've gone through the whole process? You are, submitting your application. How does it feel different?
So I am almost done. I have finished all my writing samples, my personal statements and my smaller writing pieces. And I am working on the edits for my 15 to 20 page writing sample now. Everything else is completely finished. The way I felt moving through this process has been very different than how I felt before doing the program, simply because I felt confident in figuring out every step along the way. And I just took it step by step because I had all of these templates from you to work off of. Like the point of the program was not to submit my applications during our time together, It was to build the skills I needed so that I could then go and actually do it. And that's what I was able to do then over the summer and this fall semester, was take all of the skills that you had provided and actually create all of these working documents in full that I needed. And so I feel really confident about what I'm submitting. And I do really feel like when I hit submit, I am going to be able to go to sleep well, because I know they are where they should be. And I know that there are other factors at play, and, you know, I could not get accepted because of a reason completely out of my control. But I know deep down that I did everything right. And if I don't get in, it is not anything that I did wrong. And that's a really good feeling.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay. What do you think the most valuable thing or like takeaway from the program is for you?
So there are so many, of course, but I think the most valuable for me was learning how to communicate with the people that I needed to start reaching out to within the programs. That was definitely the hardest part of the program for me. I'll never forget the first call I had with that first professor. I literally had to change my clothes and take a shower after the call because I was sweating so hard the entire time I was talking to this professor at the University of Cincinnati. But the skills you gave me taught me how to prepare for the calls beforehand without going into the calls blind. I also really appreciated the conversations we had about like how to write catchy emails that do get their attention right away. You know, what kind of hot words should you be mentioning in these emails and in these calls so that they'll remember you? You know, what kinds of things should you be saying in the very limited time they can give you? How do you balance this idea of making sure that you let them talk about themselves, but also that you leave time to talk about you? Because that's the point of the call, right? I mean, you do have to butter them up sometimes, but how do you make sure that they leave with you on their brain, right? And that is something that I didn't understand how that worked at all before doing the program. I had no experience in networking or anything like that. I've always been a part of very small departments that could offer me whatever I needed for the most part. And now, just in, you know, sending follow-up emails and things, I feel really confident sending those emails and following up with phone calls when I do need things, because I've learned how to establish these relationships. And I am really hoping that, you know, when these professors sit down at the table where they make the application decisions, that there will be people at that table who remember talking to me, who remember answering an email from me, and who will say something like, yeah, she was really passionate, or yeah, she already has such a great working idea of what she wants to do when she comes into the program, or, you know, I already have someone in mind who I think would be thrilled to work with her, because I know just having one person at the table who could advocate for me now could be the difference between getting in and getting rejected.
Yes, awesome. Very true. Very true. Thank you. I have a question about investing in yourself. How did you decide to make the decision to do that? And what would you say to others who are also considering investing in themselves?
I am currently in a master's program. I left my full-time job to go back to school. I'm living on a very small teaching stipend. Anyone who does it knows the pain. And so it was really hard to think about taking what was essentially my rent money for the month and investing it in something like this. It is not anything I've ever done before. And the first thing I did was I had some conversations with people and kind of talked through, is this the best option? I talked to my husband a lot about it. I called my mom, who lives in Indiana, one day, and we talked about it a lot. And I have a lot of support, which helped me because I had people telling me, yes, you should go for it. You've thought these things through. It sounds like this could be the difference between you getting in and not getting in. So why wouldn't you do it? And for me personally, it was just about sitting down and reflecting on what my objectives were for the next 5, 10, 15 years, and thinking about how in the long run, the investment in this program, if it makes the difference in getting me where I want to be, it will have all been worth it. And it will be nothing in comparison if I can double my salary getting into a university, if I can get on a track for tenure. if I can add a level of fulfillment to my life in getting to do my own research and writing papers and, writing a book or editing or publishing or whatever it is I get to do, when I think about why I wanted to leave my old job in the first place. So it was a lot of just putting things into perspective and thinking about, I've already left my job. I've already started down this path. At this point, why wouldn't I take one more step? Because I do want it and I don't want to fail. And I don't want to have to wait another year to learn from my mistakes and try again because I'm ready to do it now.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Would you tell other people to do the Fearless Grad program?
Absolutely. I think anyone who doesn't have someone who can train them on how to do this needs to come to the program. Anyone who is a first-gen college student who didn't have an older sibling who went through the process or anything like that. And I think what's really interesting about the program is that I think when you think about these kind of programs, a lot of people think that it's just geared towards STEM. And I had people ask me, oh, do you really need help? I mean, it's just English. It's just humanities. It can't be that hard, right? Which is rude. But it has nothing to do with just being in a certain program or department. It's about the skills that you learn so that your application can be the best that it can be. So anyone who opens that application page and goes, oh my God, I don't know how to do this, should stop right there and find a way to learn how to do it. Because what is the point of doing it halfway? If you're going to pay $100 to submit that application, why would you want it to be anything less than perfect?
All right. Well, thank you. Anything else you want to share or that you found interesting or surprising?
I will say an aspect of the program that I really enjoyed was looking at the statistics and gathering information for my particular department and field and looking at the salary I was making beforehand, and then playing around with what I could make based on if I do go to a university, what it looks like to be an associate professor, what it looks like to have tenure. It was really nice to actually see some of those numbers and compare them to the kind of money my family makes now. That was something that was really spurring for me in the program to think that, if I put in the time now and I do this right, over the span of my entire life, what's another 4 or 5 years to get a PhD if it can make this big of a difference in my life? Like, the only reason to not do it is fear, and that's not a good enough reason.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you, Mckenzi.